My wife, who is 39, and I, at 40, have been married for 17 years. We are high school sweethearts, together now for about 23 years. We have 3 daughters, 15, 13, and 1-year-old. 3 days ago, my wife came home from work, seemed frantic and emotional, hurriedly packed a small overnight bag, and left without much explanation. I only know this because our oldest daughter happened to be home and saw her leave. She tried talking to her, but my wife was crying, completely overwhelmed, and barely said a word. Our daughter described her as looking almost panicked. Since then, my wife has not answered any of our texts or calls. I reached out to her parents right away, and they finally responded, saying she was safe with them and asked us to be patient and understanding. That was it, no other information. I tried contacting her brother, sister, and a close friend from her work. Her brother said he had no idea what was going on, and her friend mentioned she had seen her at work that morning, but she had left by lunchtime 3 days ago. That is all anyone knows. It has now been 3 days, and we have not heard a single word from my wife, not even to check in on the kids. We are left here with no answers. I am here trying to keep it together for my 3 girls, who keep asking what happened and why their mom left. All I can tell them is that she is with their grandparents and that we are supposed to be patient and understanding. But I cannot shake the urge to pack up the kids and drive over there without warning. It is only a 3-hour drive. Just sitting here in this silence is agonizing. The kids seem to think we had some massive fight and are on the verge of a divorce, but that is nowhere near the truth. We hardly ever fight, and the kids know this well. I cannot make sense of any of it. My mind keeps running in circles, and I have no idea how to handle all of this alone. If something terrible had happened, would her family not have told me? Maybe something from her past came up, but again, if it were me in that situation, my wife would be the first person I would turn to for support. None of this makes sense. I am worried, angry, and scared. All these emotions rolled into one, but I am left here, waiting, with no idea why she would just vanish like this. Update 1. I am still new to navigating Reddit, so forgive me if this update is brief. Last night was a long one, and I barely slept. I read through every response from yesterday and into the early morning hours. In the end, I decided to contact the police, and they performed a wellness check, which stirred up some issues I will not get into here. But now, I have some clarity. As it turns out, my wife has been having an affair for at least 2 years, maybe even longer. The man she was seeing suffered a heart attack on Tuesday and passed away that night. My mother-in-law, and probably my sister-in-law as well, knew about it and were helping her cover it up. Still, my wife has not contacted me or the girls. For now, I am keeping this information from our daughters, but honestly, I have no idea where to go from here. This revelation has just about broken me. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. I am not sure how to move forward, but that is the reality now. If you pray, please keep me and my family in your thoughts. Update 2. Some people recommended that I join this particular group, and I have been reading through many posts whenever I can find a quiet moment, mostly at night after the day's chaos settles down, only to be hit by these intense waves of sadness. Then, waves of anger hit me, sometimes pure rage, other times a mix of sorrow and anger so strong that sleeping is nearly impossible. I drift through the days feeling like a zombie. I am trying to understand all these abbreviations people use. I guess my D-Day was Friday. At first, I thought my wife had been having an affair for 2 years, but now it looks like it has likely been even longer. The man she was involved with was someone she had known for quite a while, and his sudden passing from a heart attack was what brought everything to light. With help from my oldest daughter, I have been piecing together more of the story, though there are still parts one I'm not ready to share. I did not plan on posting more, but the support and advice I have received have been surprisingly helpful, even therapeutic. It is painful to know how many others are struggling with this same kind of heartbreak. For anyone else going through this, my heart goes out to you. In the past 2 days, I have met with 2 different attorneys to talk through my options and reached out to a few counseling centers for therapy, though wait times are very long where we live. I am trying to follow a lot of the advice I have been given, like avoiding alcohol, not a problem since I have never been a drinker, focusing on self-care, exercise, and so on. I have always stayed in decent shape for my age, but right now, it is tough to find the motivation to work out. Many people are asking for details, the who, what, when, and why of it all. Please understand that I am just not ready to unpack everything yet. It feels like every day brings a new shock, a new weight to bear. I am mainly here looking for advice on one thing: sleep. I am barely sleeping, and that alone is making everything feel worse. My wife was my whole world, my best friend since high school, the mother of my 3 beautiful daughters. We had our own jokes, even little secret handshakes. Now, it feels like all of that is gone, like it meant nothing to her. I think about all those years together, every milestone, every laugh, and it just crushes me. It is as though the past meant nothing, and the future I pictured with her is gone. Sometimes, I am just overwhelmed with anger, and I punch the mattress until my arms ache. I sleep only when I am completely exhausted, then wake up suddenly, and the cycle of painful thoughts starts all over again. Whatever energy I have left, I put toward taking care of my girls. They have been doing their best to take care of me, too, almost like they are the parents. It is unfair to them. For anyone who has been through this, how did you sleep after finding out about an affair? How did you handle the silence, the emptiness at night when it is just you and your thoughts? Outside of being there for my daughters, I know getting some rest has to be my priority, but I just cannot seem to manage it. If you have any advice, I would really appreciate it. Thank you all. Update 3. Sorry if I am still fumbling around on Reddit. I am new to this, and I am not sure how much of my situation to repeat. It has been just over a week since my D-Day, when I found out the affair has been going on for over 4 years. There is no exact timeline, but it probably started as an emotional connection before becoming physical. I wonder if the pandemic and lockdowns played a part in it, questions I may never get answers to. Yesterday, my in-laws came by unannounced to see the grandkids. My wife has been staying at their place since this whole nightmare began, which is honestly maddening. They spent maybe 15 minutes with the girls before pulling me aside to talk. It was a long, heavy conversation, one I do not care to recount here in full. To sum it up, my wife wants to come home but is afraid of facing the backlash from her actions. Her parents pushed hard to figure out if I am planning on divorcing her and spent a good amount of time urging me to consider forgiving her and rebuilding the marriage. It was clear her parents were both embarrassed and ashamed of the situation, but it was equally obvious they wanted her out of their house. Our conversation was civil and respectful, though I will admit I lied and told them I was uncertain about my plans. In truth, I am fully committed to divorce. But if I reveal that now, I might never get the full story from my wife. I may never get it anyway, but I want her to sit down in front of me and tell me everything. After 17 years of marriage, 3 kids, a lifetime of memories, and all we have shared, I feel she owes me that much. I want her to look me in the eyes and explain it all. I also feel it is important for my kids to see that I gave her a fair chance to apologize and handle this like adults. I am trying my best to set the right example for them, though sometimes I wonder if I am going about it the wrong way. Legally, I cannot keep her out of the house. The lawyer made that very clear. So, if she decides to come back, there is nothing I can do to prevent it, even though I am not ready to have her here. My girls and I have started to find a good rhythm, and I made what I thought would be an impossible demand. I told her she could come home if, and only if, she agreed to sit down with me in person, look me in the eye, and tell me the full story of her affair, start to finish, without dodging a single question. On top of that, I asked that she sit down with the girls and apologize to them, answering their questions honestly. They already know the basics, so I feel this is only fair. Legally, I cannot force her to do any of this. She has every right to come home regardless, but if she is too afraid to face us, maybe I can use that to buy some time. Is that wrong? I am not trying to be manipulative here. I am just not ready to share a home with her again. There is a mandatory 90-day waiting period in our state before we can officially divorce, and in the meantime, both of us will have to return to work and somehow keep moving forward. I just want to delay her return long enough to get myself into a better place, mentally and emotionally. She has been texting our daughters, telling them she does not want a divorce and apologizing repeatedly. They show me the texts, and she asks about me each day. The reality of what she has done is finally hitting her hard, especially in the last few days. I am just not sure how to handle this. Is my demand foolish? It sounds like she may be coming back sooner than I had hoped, and while I am trying to stay confident, this situation is so delicate. I only want to make the best decisions for my daughters, and then for myself as we all move forward. Thank you to everyone who has been offering encouragement, advice, and support. Update 4. This may sound anticlimactic, and I apologize for the length, but I need to get it off my chest. This weekend was rough. My wife came home yesterday. There had been a slow build-up throughout the week, and when she walked through the door, there was this terribly uncomfortable, awkward tension between us. Normally, I would give her a hug and kiss when she came home, but this time was different, just silence and unease. She actually came up to me and tried to hug me before saying a word, but I turned away. I could not believe it. She was acting as if nothing had happened. After she settled in, I naturally asked her to tell me everything, as we had agreed. Once again, she said she was not ready. We had even talked on the phone earlier in the week with the same result. I reminded her that the only condition for her coming back home was that she respected the family enough to explain why she had been gone for almost 3 weeks. But she just repeated again that she was not ready to talk about it. It took everything in me not to lose my temper. I took a few deep breaths, trying hard to keep myself together, but I failed, and there we were, left in silence after the first of many long pauses. I blurted out that she had been having an affair with this coworker of hers for over 4 years. I told her I knew she had planned on leaving me for him, had ghosted her entire family, and was now walking back through the door without honoring the one condition I had set. I told her I wanted a divorce. That is when things took an odd turn. From her body language and expression, it was clear she had no idea how much I actually knew about her affair. She looked at me, wide-eyed, and then just stood there in the kitchen, staring down at the floor, completely silent. No reaction. She was just stoic. I was braced for anything. Maybe some emotional outburst, a confession, or even her yelling and blaming the affair on me. I thought she might at least take a serious tone, sit down, and agree to talk things through. But this blank reaction? I never saw this coming. We must have stood there in absolute silence for 5 solid minutes. It was the strangest moment I have ever experienced. She seemed at a complete loss for words, and I had no idea what to say next either. I had read all the comments and advice from others in my situation, even taken notes and rehearsed responses in front of a mirror, preparing for every scenario I could imagine. But somehow, I had not prepared for this. Eventually, I decided to spell out everything I knew about her affair right then and there. It might have been a bad idea, but I told her everything, adding in my own assumptions about certain parts, like how she met him, her sister's involvement, and things that might have happened during COVID. The whole time, she just stared down at the floor, saying nothing. My frustration grew as I talked, because her silence felt like a slap in the face. I kept my voice steady, resisting the urge to yell or say anything obscene, but I was barely holding it together. After I finally stopped, there was yet another long, uncomfortable silence, and my anger shifted to deep sadness. I softly asked her what I had done to push her away, if she ever really loved me, and if this man had been worth it. But she still said nothing. No tears, no apology, no anger, no explanation. Just stood there with her head down. Nothing. That silence hurt more than even finding out about the affair. I just stood there, staring at her, not sure what to do. Then, things got worse. Our daughters had been eavesdropping on the whole conversation. I should have realized they might be listening, but I got so emotional that I did not even consider where they were when I confronted her. My oldest daughter came downstairs, furious, and unleashed all the pent-up anger she had been holding back. My wife quickly ran upstairs and locked herself in the bedroom. That is where we stand now. I could hear her crying most of the night until I eventually fell asleep. Only our youngest has spoken to her. The rest of us have been avoiding her completely. I am thinking about suggesting she stay with her sister until the divorce is finalized if I can work up the courage to ask. But this is her home too. It is just going to be miserable if we all have to share a space with her. I was wrong about my wife, and all of you were right. I was wrong about everything we had together. Our years of marriage, the memories, the big moments. I had been so convinced that she would break down, beg for forgiveness, pour out everything from the past 4 years, and finally tell me the truth to ease her own guilt. I truly believed that, After all we had built, we would be worth that much to her. This is the same woman who once drove all the way back to a farmer's market to return $10 she had been mistakenly given in change. But now, we are somehow not worth any honesty. I am not worth it to her. Maybe I never was. So, what now? Today, things at home have been unbearable. The girls and I try to go about our day the way we have for the past 2 weeks, but obviously, things are different now. I wish I could just skip ahead, to get past the divorce, past the awkward conversations, past the unavoidable arguments and fights, past all the drama. For anyone who has had to share a home with a wayward spouse, how did you manage? How do people manage this kind of situation, especially with kids involved? I know this is just the beginning, and I keep reading posts from people saying it eventually gets better, but I feel so far from that. There is not a moment where I do not feel like I am barely holding it together. Right now, I am trying my hardest to keep a stable front for my daughters, but I do not know if I can keep it up for 3 whole months. School will start back up long before this ordeal is over, and I am guessing this is my life now. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to support me. I am not sure if the hardest part is still ahead or if I have already gone through the worst, but any help you can offer to get me through the next phase would mean a lot. Update 5. I am in a rough spot. Since my wife came home and I found out about her affair, I have been trying to fake my way through it as best I can for the girl's sake. I try to say the right things, keep my mind in the right place, but tonight I need to be honest. As many people have said, these feelings hit in waves, and tonight, I was hit hard and lost my composure a bit. I have already filed for divorce, but my wife has yet to hire an attorney. I am holding out some hope that we can have an uncontested divorce that we handle mostly on our own, but after tonight, I am not so sure. We have been cohabitating during the week, and on Friday nights, she goes to her sister's house and stays until Sunday night since her sister's place is about an hour away from her work. This routine has been going on for the past couple of weeks. Mostly, we just avoid each other as the girls, and I try to keep things as normal as possible, while she keeps to herself. There are a few casual interactions each evening, but my oldest daughter is not speaking to her after a couple of big blow-ups. Honestly, that distance is probably for the best right now. I have been taking all the advice I can find, working on my self-discipline around her, and it takes all my willpower to stay short and indifferent when we do talk. I try to keep things polite and respectful. Then tonight happened. For the past few Fridays, she has come home, grabbed a few things, and taken off for her sister's place before I am even back from work. But tonight was different. She was waiting in the kitchen when I walked in, and as I tried to walk past her, she lightly grabbed my hand. She asked if this was how I was planning to treat her, just because she was not ready to talk to me about the affair. That was the first time she had even mentioned the affair since this nightmare began almost a month ago. I really tried, to just hold my tongue and walk away. But the girls were not home, and all the rage I had been burying surged to the surface. I finally let loose. I poured out everything on her. Every pain, every hurt, every ounce of misery and anger. I lost all sense of time as I unloaded everything I had been holding in. I raised my voice at times, probably got a little too animated and loud. I told her how broken I felt, the agony I wake up to every single day, the torment that will not leave me alone. I could easily make this post thousands of words if I tried to recount it all. Once I started, I just could not stop. Of course, I got emotional and cried, breaking down again. Afterward, I was so angry at myself for letting her get to me. I had been doing so well, keeping it together, but then I lost control. I knew this moment would come, and I hate that I let it happen. There is only so much I can release in the gym, and tonight, it all came out. For the first time, though, she actually broke down too. She started sobbing uncontrollably, and, regrettably, I felt a kind of satisfaction seeing her feel some of the pain I have been living with. I wish I did not care, but I will admit, there was a bit of satisfaction in seeing her finally break down. It was like, for a moment, I could see that there was still someone in there capable of feeling something. During my outburst, she mumbled, "I'm so sorry," over and over, crying in that raw, uncontrolled way, but that was all she could seem to say. In the end, I left the kitchen before she could pull herself together to say anything more, telling her to please just leave me alone. After that, She lingered around in the kitchen for a while before eventually leaving for her sister's house again. The girls got home about half an hour later and could tell that something had happened. I am not very good at hiding it, but I was not ready to talk about anything, and am not sure they even need to know. The two younger ones are doing better, and I do not want to hinder their progress, and telling my oldest would just add more fuel to her anger, which I am also trying to avoid. This whole thing is exhausting. I hate it. I wish I had kept it together and just given her the cold shoulder, walked right past her without a word. Now, looking back, it feels like she was trying to bring up the affair, maybe find a way to start a conversation, but could not get far because I exploded. Lately, I have even found myself starting to worry about her. I know a lot of you may not agree with this, but I do not want her to hurt herself. She has been isolated, alone with her thoughts, and most people have turned their backs on her. Some might say she deserves it, and I get that, but she is still the mother of my kids. This feels like a big setback, and I am disappointed in myself. Sorry for the long rant. I called my brother and vented to him, too. I will try to pull myself back together come Monday. I am only human, after all. It did feel good, finally letting everything out at her, but now I feel the regret. Should I reach out to her by text, or just leave things as they are? I am such a mess. Thanks to everyone for listening and for giving me the support I need to get through this. Thank you for all the advice. It has helped more than you know. Amid all the chaos, we have all started therapy, which is something, but this is still just incredibly difficult. Update 6. I know a lot of you have reached out, and I truly appreciate the concern. Most of you were right. Things are not great, and I have been struggling just to stay afloat. I have not been online much because this week has been rough, and I have been backpedaling hard. My wife has not really left me alone. All week, she has been overly nice, continually apologizing for the affair, crying and hovering around me, knocking on my door at night, wanting to talk. I have mostly ignored her but have talked a bit when I was in the mood. Finally, Wednesday night, I snapped at her and told her to leave me alone. But then, last night, something different happened. It has been a little over a month since she came back after everything blew up, and we have settled into this uneasy cohabitating routine. After the girls went to bed, she came to my room and asked if we could talk privately in a way that felt different from how she had been approaching me all week. I was reluctant at first, but eventually, we went out to the garage and sat in my car, just to make sure the kids would not overhear any of it. This talk went on for nearly 3 hours, or at least that is what she told me. She finally told me everything, or at least everything she said she needed to say. I was up all night afterward, listening to her cry for hours, and I could not sleep. I found myself cycling between feeling sad and then so angry that I had to fight the urge to go back in there and scream at her, and then back to crying again. Forgive me if it takes me a day or so to respond, but I just needed to get this all out. I keep telling myself to take a deep breath, let the tension ease from my chest, and try to get some sleep. But it is not easy when my wife keeps apologizing and begging for another chance. Tonight was the same. I finally had to leave the house for a few hours just to get away. It is just so painful to be around her. As she explained, her sister introduced her to this man well over 5 years ago, supposedly without any romantic intentions. He was in a senior position at the company where she eventually wanted to work, and he helped her get a foot in the door. So, the change in jobs was not initially about the affair. But once she started working there, her motivation to stay connected with him grew. He began flirting with her, first through texting, then through photos and messages. Before long, just before the pandemic hit, things became physical. She confessed to her sister at the time, even thought about telling me, but decided to keep it hidden. She claimed she went no contact with him once lockdown started, but as soon as restrictions lifted, he reached out, and they resumed talking. Soon enough, the physical side of the affair picked back up when businesses reopened. She says she tried ending it a few times out of guilt, but each time, she went right back to him. When we sat down to talk, she brought a 5-page packet of handwritten notes detailing her entire affair timeline. She read through it, answering my questions as we went along. She lied about weekend trips with the girls, fabricated work travel, and made up excuses about traffic, problems with her family, and even shopping trips. The list was endless. She had covered it all up so well that I never even thought to question her. Everything was just a front to spend time with him, and hearing the full extent of her deception only made me feel worse. Everyone was right. Knowing everything really did hurt even more. Strangely enough, she never grew distant with me during all of this, at least not in the ways I had read about. Intimacy did shift a bit, but nothing that would have made me see red flags. She admitted that she fell in love with him, wanted a life with him, and became enamored with the thrill of escaping from her daily responsibilities. He was older, divorced, and promised her all sorts of luxurious things. Vacations and gifts, you name it. She admitted to feeling bored with the routines of family life, and the excitement of being with him felt too tempting to resist. She was remarkably candid, visibly emotional, and appeared sincere. Partway through, I lost my composure and started crying. Hearing her confession was just as painful as you would imagine. Once she finished, she told me how much she loved me, that she always has, and that she would do anything and everything to try to save our marriage. Many of you had predicted she would say that, but to me, it felt rehearsed, almost hollow. I have known this woman for more than half my life, and I can usually tell when she is not being completely genuine. Maybe I am wrong, but either way, it does not seem to matter. I managed to hold it together better than I did last week, though I did get angry and said a few things I probably should not have. I could not help but throw in a jab about how her affair partner was seeing other women and that she was just one of many he was willing to toss aside. That comment seemed to really upset her. I had thought about this moment for so long, imagining what I might say, the sharp responses I would throw at her. But when it came down to it, most of those thoughts left me in the moment. One thing I did ask, though, was this. If her affair partner were still alive, and she had to choose between him and me, who would she choose? She hesitated, looked down, and mumbled, "That's not fair." I pressed her for an answer, and finally she said, "Of course, I would pick you." I told her that her hesitation was exactly why I was going through with the divorce. I knew she was still lying to me. She started sobbing again, and that was the last thing she said. We sat in the car in silence for a while as she kept crying, but I was exhausted. I finally told her that we were getting divorced, and for the sake of the girls, we needed to get along and stay civil, be the best parents we could be, and remain active in their lives. I added that after all the pain she had put me through, I hoped she was decent enough to make this a fair and amicable divorce. That, to me, would prove that she actually cared about me on some level. Before getting out of the car, I borrowed a line I had come across online. I am not a petty person, and I did not say it to hurt her, but it felt like the right closing statement. And I meant it. I leaned over, kissed her on the forehead, and told her that I would have loved her forever. Then I got out and went to bed. That was it. Of course, I did not sleep at all last night, and here I am. Another sleepless night, going over it all again. I have not spoken with my lawyer yet, but the window for her to contest the divorce is passed, so I guess that is one bit of relief. Still, I find myself crying again, sinking back into waves of depression and anger. It was brutal hearing everything last night, and honestly, I think I could have done without all those details. Even now, I cannot help but wonder if she was being completely truthful. She could have lied or even made things up, but everything she told me fit with the pieces I had already gathered over the past month, so it felt real. For now, that is where things stand, but it feels endless. I have a few good days, start feeling strong, and then something else knocks me back down. Time is strange right now. It feels like both months and days have gone by all at once. I am going to try to get some rest tonight. Imagine the love of your life, the only woman you have ever loved, ever kissed, telling you she cheated on you for over 4 years, not because she fell out of love or because we had drifted apart. No relationship issues, no dead bedroom. Just because she was bored. I cannot tell if that makes it better or worse. What do you think about this story? Write in comments. If you don't follow our channel Cheating Room, you will probably never hear from us again. If you are subscribed, congratulations, you will not miss any exciting story. Thank you for listening to this shocking story with us. See you again.